Welcome to the podcast. It's the best podcast in the world. This is going to end up on the show. I know it, motherfucker.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to episode 109 of Epitome of Stupidity, your favorite allegedly metal podcast. The intro song today is Omnipresence by Delving. You may already know about them, or at least Nick of Delving's other band that might be Elder. But more on all that shortly. If you're new here, I'm Clint. I'll be your host. Welcome in. If you're a returning listener, you know that at this point, you can set your brain to the Clint setting, and we'll hit cruising altitude here shortly. Should you need help finding that setting, might I recommend some delicious mead from Brimming Horn to assist? All you do is go to brimminghornmeadery.com, pick out some flavorful and tasty mead, and then at checkout use code EPITOMEAD, that's EPITOMEAD, and boom, 10% off your order. And once it gets there, you will be well on your way to finding your own personal Clint setting. Well, okay, let's go ahead and delve into Delving. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Delving is the instrumental side project of the one and only Elder frontman and multi-instrumentalist one Nick DeSalvo. He's been on the show before, and at that point in time, it was to talk Elder stuff. So I figured, let's give it another swing and do the Delving thing. I really enjoy this new album. It's a real good, just relaxing and just wonderfully the music. Wow, easy, Clint. The musicality of it is so fucking great. There's so many layers and so many things going on, and it all just fits and flows together so damn well. It's kind of like quintessential fucking soundtrack thing for while you're just doing stuff. Be it drinking your coffee, be it random things around the house. It's just great to have on in the background, or it's great to just be your fucking focus because it takes all your focus to hear all the things that are going on in it. And again, it all just fits and flows together so fucking well. It's great. So there's one full-length previous release, which is 2021's Hirschbrunnen. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. It's some version of German stuff. And the follow-up, All Paths Diverge, was released on the 23rd, so 2 days ago as I'm recording this. The band came to be essentially because Nick had a bunch of awesome ideas sitting around that maybe didn't necessarily fit Elder. And again, based on the way this album's come out and the one before it, I'm just fucking fine with that. As I've said 22 times so far before on this show, 2,200 fucking times, I love instrumental shit. It's so easy for me to enjoy and have the music kind of dictate how things feel as opposed to being told what to feel by lyrics. I know it's a stupid take, but whatever. I also enjoy lyrics and vocals and all that, so don't fucking come at me with that shit. But anyways, enough for me. Let's maybe talk some interesting instrumental stuff with Nick of Delving. Nonsensical phone sounds. Ready? Beep, beep, boop, beep, 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 bop, bop. Ring. And he answered. On the line with me today is one Nick DeSalvo. I'm still not sure I'm saying that right, of Delving, and of course Elder. Nick, how the hell are you today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing, Clint?
It's fucking spectacular. So am I actually saying your last name right?
You are. I mean, probably not according to the proper Italian way of pronunciation, but good enough for us Americans.
So you're a Boston guy of Italian heritage living in Germany, correct?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I think I'm like pretty through and through American, kind of like a bit of this, a bit of that.
Sure.
I just have an Italian surname. And I did spend a lot of years living in Massachusetts and sometime in Boston, but my family moved around a lot too. I'm actually more from the Midwest, if you want to look at it that way. I was born in Michigan, and all my family's from Ohio. I think that's where you're based, right?
I am. Yep.
Yeah. So,
you're a worldly fella.
Yeah, exactly. From all the way from Michigan to Boston to Germany. But yeah, I'm living in Germany and have been for the past decade, more or less.
Is the beer there that much better?
I don't think so. I think I think like the standard brew that you're gonna get anywhere is pretty good. There's not a lot of variety in styles. I mean, it's all German beer. That's the thing.
Sure. Yeah.
Of course, they do German beer very well. I'm only saying that, of course, the beer is good. With the caveat that I really like IPAs. I really like Belgian beer. I really like styles that are harder to find here too. So, the American like big, Budweisers and Coors and Miller and that kind of stuff. Like, yeah, it's obviously better than that. But
Sure. Yeah. I've actually, for our conversation, I've actually grabbed me a, I believe to be a German beer. Maybe it says it on the thing. Can you see that there?
Garden. Yeah, I believe that's Belgian.
Oh yeah, it says Belgian wheat beer right there on it. I'm fucking nailing it already.
But I mean, like wheat beer, like for example, style you can't really find here. So
no shit.
It's not that hard. It's a little not that easily. So yeah.
I would have lost that bet soundly.
No, I know this is not an alcohol podcast, but I could definitely talk about beer for a long time.
I mean, you're scratching me where I is. But you are correct in that technically it's not an alcohol podcast, though I do consume a lot of it while talking. Other than that, what have you been listening to lately?
Man, I'm trying to think of like what I've got like chilling in my record bin right now. I saw Sacramonte the other night. Those are friends of ours from San Diego, come from like the same circle as like Earthless and like ex Radio Moscow guys and stuff. And they just put out a new record, which embarrassingly, I'm blanking on the title of it, but that's been on my turntable this week.
Okay. Is it SACRAMONTI?
SACRI.
RI.
Yeah, it's very like proggy, kind of 70s inspired rock.
Okay.
Yeah, shit, I don't know. Tons of stuff, but also not that much. I'm kind of trying to work on elder stuff right now, so I'm big into like focus mode, just trying to put my head down and only, kind of block out music, which I tend to do often when I'm trying to write music, so I don't get too sidetracked by other things.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. Since you mentioned it directly there, let's do a quick elder sidebar before we go full delving. Sounds like you're working on new stuff.
Yes.
B, how was the fucking Tool tour? I was so excited about that for you guys.
Yeah, man, that was crazy. It was really good. It was really fun. It was like a very kind of overwhelming experience at the beginning. And once we got our bearings, like playing in massive arenas, 20,000 people kind of thing. Once we came to grips with that and did a couple shows, it became also very fun and not super strange in its own weird way, but just like being part of that big production, having seeing the professionality and their team being so cool and helpful with us. And we felt very privileged. It was just kind of like once the thing was rolling, we were able to really just enjoy it and, take it as like a crazy experience that's probably never going to happen again.
Yeah, man, that was fucking crazy. Like I had just saw you guys at Ace of Cups here in Columbus, and then what felt like a month later, that tour was announced, and it was like, fuck yeah, that's awesome, man. Because like I don't know, I didn't get to see you guys on that tour, but like I'm still astounded that Ace of Cups was able to contain you guys with as just fucking loud and awesome as it was. So I feel like I don't know, this sounds condescending. That's obviously not how I mean it, but like you guys, it might be a weird thing to say, but you guys, I feel like would translate to that so well because you sound so fucking big.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say how it sounded to be an audience member, although I heard overwhelmingly positive things. We had initially a half-hour set time, and after after a week, they gave us 40 minutes because I think they realized that we're not idiots. We weren't going to play over, or we were decent human beings. I'm not sure what the logic was, but we took that time and we really tried to hone in on like what are the elder songs that would translate best to a big cavernous space for people who haven't heard the band before. We didn't necessarily play like the proggiest, most like not stuff that would be difficult where notes are getting lost. We really tried to like pick a set that would also work well in that space because it is so big. And oftentimes if you're doing very like very detailed guitar stuff and you've got a lot of layers going on, I think unless you're super familiar with the song, it might just sound boomy and you don't get at all the gist of the music. So
Sure.
another thing to think about, which is interesting, putting together your set list based on the physical space that you're playing in.
Yeah.
And also just, of course, like, oh, you're playing in front of, 10 to 20,000 people, probably 99% of whom have never heard you. Just try and pick 30 to 40 minutes of music that's going to be somewhat representational, but also hopefully catch people's attention.
Do you feel like the immediate question there is, do you feel like it worked? And I don't know that that's the exact right question I want to ask, but I think it relays the point well enough. Was there a noticeable uptick in things?
Yeah, definitely. And I think by Tool standards, it worked very well. Like I don't know. I kind of jokingly said to Danny Carey, the drummer, he's mostly like our point of contact within the band because we've known him for a while, and he's the one who offered us the slot. And I remember seeing him after like a week or so, and you don't really see each other too much because the band's doing their own thing. They're traveling, in their own nightliners and whatever, and they've got their own backstages. But every once in a while, you'd see each other. Oh, hey, how've the show's been going? And I was like, oh yeah, great. No one's booed us yet. Kind of just. And he's like, oh yeah, that's great. That happens not infrequently to support bands. So like, I'll just say the bar is low for what we'd consider like normal reception. If you don't get booed, then that's already a good sign. But I think people liked it. We noticed an uptick every day, and we still, see comments on like YouTube videos or social media shit. People being like, oh yeah, I saw you in wherever opening for Tool, and I really liked it. And it's nice to know that did have an effect, because that's kind of like an old school way of like trying to bust into bigger markets, really just getting that support gig and knowing that it does still mean something for sure.
Yeah. Made a mark on somebody at XYZ Arena.
Yeah.
Enough. It's weird to say enough about Elder, but that's what we're going to do. We're going to move on to the delving thing here, because All Paths Diverge came out just a couple days ago. Let's kind of start at the beginning with this. How did delving come to be?
Delving came to be in the pandemic mostly. I've been writing music that didn't really feel like it was going to fit Elder for a while, like over the course of years. Just I'll be like trying to work on new material, and sometimes get 3 or 4 minutes into a song and realize like this doesn't really sound like Elder, but I'm not sure what to do with it. I'm just gonna put it to the side. And when the pandemic came, we had just released our, I guess, 5th record, Omens, like just as the pandemic kind of shut down everything and we canceled all our tours. And that was where I, for the first time, was like, all right, I need a project to keep me busy. Maybe it's time to pick up these songs and just record them for myself, if nothing else. It wasn't going to be necessarily a solo project or anything. I didn't like pitch it to our label until it was recorded. But yeah, basically just started as a kind of like pandemic outlet for me to do something, because our bassist of Elder, for example, he lives in Massachusetts still, and the other 3 guys in Elder live here in Germany, so we couldn't like meet up and really practice or do anything. It was almost like a therapeutic way of just keeping myself busy.
Sure.
That's how it started. I recorded the first record there at a buddy's studio nearby, and the label I work for here, so I want to say my bosses, I work for Stickman Records. That's the German label that puts out Elder and puts out Delving. And they liked the record and they wanted to put it out, and then it kind of just came a thing. All of a sudden, the Elder booking agent was asking me, what's the deal with this? Do you want to play shows? And then I said, okay, I guess I'll play shows. And then it became a live band. So it wasn't like so much premeditated as it was like really just I wanted to record some music, and then it turned into that.
Nice. And it seems like it all kind of came together on its own kind of naturally after that. How would you describe delving?
I have a hard time describing my music in general, but I think it's just, I I don't like this tag like psychedelic because I don't even know what the hell it means, but I guess I just call it kind of like psychedelic rock. It's definitely halfway progressive rock. Sometimes there's influences from, lots of different genres. I would say there's obviously like some old school prog rock in there, and there's some krautrock, but there's also some heavier riffs, which wouldn't really be at home in any of those genres. And I really prefer not to even think about that stuff at all. I mean, there's also plenty of moments on this new record, I think, that don't even fit there. Like the ending of the record is almost more like a hip hop or like a electronic sequence, and there's some electronic stuff that I'm getting more and more into. So yeah, I don't know. I leave that to the big brains in the music industry to music journalism to tell me what it is.
Sure. I've got something about that specific part that you referenced here later on in the conversation, but I'm glad to hear you say that I don't necessarily like the psychedelic thing, because I don't get it either. Just like I don't necessarily get fucking stoner rock. Like, why is that? What the hell does that mean? That doesn't mean anything.
I mean, yeah, I think so. I was having this conversation with someone who like asked me like, what is psychedelic rock? I was like, man, you're right. And I hate myself for calling everything I do psychedelic rock, but it's kind of like one of those umbrella terms. Like just
Sure.
It's kind of like laziness on my part, but I'm like, I don't know what else to call. It's like kind of references like 60s and 70s music where people were taking drugs and getting a little bit more experimental with the music. That's as like good as I can, anything kind of like vaguely hippie-ish that falls outside of like Nickelback rock could be
At this point, is this something that you look forward to getting back to?
What?
The delving thing, kind of in between elder stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely. I like both. I think for a long time I only played in elder, and that was, my sole focus. And it's been very nice to have another outlet for music and not just like feel like I have to play heavy rock all the time, because I really do like, obviously the stuff I play with elder, I love that kind of music as well, but I don't necessarily feel like making that all the time. So it's good to have another project that's just a little more free, a little more, no one's, it's not like a popular band. So like there's no one you can just kind of do whatever you want.
There's less constraints, it seems like.
Yeah. I mean, it's silly to say that because like I'm the only one, constraining elder as far as that's concerned too. But, it's a band with a long history at this point, and it's a band with a strong identity. And I still feel like it's got the way we play together, especially like, with our drummer and our bassist and our other guitarist, Michael, he plays with me in delving too. So, but he's got a very much like lighter sound than I do. But the way we play, the rhythm section at Elder 2, it is big and bombastic, and it's got its own thing. It really lends itself more towards heavy music. So yeah. And it's been fun to write music and now have a live band that's also different, and they have different strengths, and it's a really cool chemistry that we've got going on there too. So like, I don't know, now I'm thinking about that more and more, like, for the next record, like, yeah, I want to, write some stuff that's going to really play to those strengths too. It's just
nice.
Yeah.
Just as you kind of build that chemistry and start to understand where else you can kind of push things.
Yeah. I mean, it's becoming, we didn't play out a lot because also we tried to play some shows, but it was still the pandemic. So most of them got canceled, and we just started picking it up again with this new record, been playing some festivals over the summer, and the first proper tour is going to happen in November. So for the first time, really, we're getting into like rehearsing the songs and fleshing them out and improvising and doing this kind of stuff. And that's been very also inspirational. I've been playing in Elder basically as my only band since I was like 17 years old. Now, that was like, forever ago.
Right.
And I haven't had a lot of people like playing a lot of bands with a lot of different people over their life. I guess I have to realize that like I haven't really had that many projects with other people. So it's fun to get into that and, have that different chemistry and see where that can take you.
Kind of like learning almost like learning a known skill almost later than everybody else because everything else was working with the elder thing.
Yeah, totally.
So you mentioned the shows there. How much different is it? The shows and the tour, the festivals, etc. How much different is it playing the all instrumental things as opposed to the elder stuff live?
I think we've got under 10 shows under the belt at this point, and I think the band is really still just trying to come into its own. Especially because the album I record everything myself, and then the band is almost like a different thing. It's not that we have to play everything note for note. And I think just recently I've become really more interested in the idea of like making the live show a bit different than the record too. Like really, because the three guys I'm playing with, they're all like kind of trained and studied musicians. They're great at improvising. They've got a lot of strengths that like we don't necessarily all have in elder. Like I'm not a learned musician or something. I'm not great at improvising. I can like stumble my way around, but with these guys it's really cool. I'm just learning now that like I can give them things and give them direction, and we can really evolve the songs live and have different kind of much more involved jams and stuff than we can with elder. And the songs are less complicated too, and there's also these electronic elements. Like there's a lot more of that going on live too, which everyone can get locked into a groove, and we can experiment with that. So I would say it's a bit different. I mean, elder, we play the songs, they are how they are, kind of, and this is definitely also, I'm still getting my footing, long story short, with this, figuring out, because I think you have to play at least a couple dozen shows as a band to really gel. And we're getting there, though.
Sure. I love that you note that the songs are simpler, because like previous to us getting on the call, I was noting that it feels like there are so many layers to these songs, and it's not even necessarily a thing where you have to be super paying attention to something to catch this layer. It feels like there are a bunch of really relevant layers that are all somehow working together right on top of things. But then to kind of combo that with the idea that they're simple songs is something I'm real time trying to get my head around, and I'm saying things and not having a coherent end to this while I'm doing
it. I think like I said, I'm also really bad at talking about my own music, so that makes me like I tend
for me not being able to ask questions doesn't necessarily help that.
There are a lot of layers, though. I was just chatting with the guys before we got on the call and sending over some like project files for them because we were going to start working on some new stuff or working on some of the songs that we haven't played together from the new record this week. And I'm picking through the project files and being like, okay, you play this here and this here and this here, and you play this here and this here and this here. I'm gonna like program this into my sequencer and have like the electronics play themselves here, and then you switch to keyboard there. Like there are a lot of layers, and there's a lot of jumping around, but it's not that the structure is necessarily complicated. Oftentimes it's there's a lot of interlocking rhythmic elements. There's some sort of arpeggiated synthesizer that's playing along with the drums, and maybe there's stuff that you can also leave out live. But there's enough going on where it's fun to listen to with headphones, and I think there's enough details in there. But it's a little simpler than elder. It's not like terrible. Yeah.
So when you're being that you write all these things and play them, are these guys good enough with their instruments that they're just listening to it and able to pick it up, or do you have to show people how to play it?
No, I just send everyone like basically, I mean, oftentimes it doesn't take anything other than just listening to the record, and they'll learn it themselves. Everyone's a very like autodidactic learner. Or, if there's something that's heavily affected with lots of whatever delay and it's hard to pick apart exactly what's going on, then I might send an isolated guitar track over, or, just a quick video of how to play something. But I mean, I think in the grand scheme, probably everyone is a better musician than me, at least from the performative, for the performative element, or from the performative standpoint in this band.
That's fucking mind blowing from my perspective. Like once upon a time, I figured out, probably wrong, but still, I figured out a close enough approximation of the bass line to Dazed and Confused, and it's still one of the highlights of my life. But I figured out those fucking 9 notes or whatever it is, and the idea that somebody's sitting down with this and able to, a week later come to practice with it or whatever is fucking mind blowing. So you're a guitar player by trade, and you've written and played all these parts for the record. What's your favorite non-guitar thing to do through these things?
Well, my first instrument was actually drums. So for a long time, I didn't play drums in a band, but I tried to not let it get too super rusty. So, and now I am playing drums in another band over here.
Oh, really?
Again. Yeah.
What's the name there?
The name is Weite, which is spelled W-E-I-T-E. It's a German word. Obviously, it means like openness or expanse or width or something. And that's another like instrumental band that if I had to describe it, I'd probably say sounds like delving, But I'm playing drums in that band, and so yeah, I really like to do that. But for me, the fun is mostly in composing this stuff too. But those are really the only 2 instruments that I play. I mean, I can play stringed instruments, guitar, bass, and I can play drums. I've kind of given up my attempts to learn keyboard at all. So but thankfully there's lots of machines, there's sequencers that, will play for you, and you just program, and it's very nerdy. I love to program stuff. I like to sit there with my MIDI devices, and
technology is great when it works in the right ways. It's a pain in the ass when it's trying to take over things that we want to do, but
yeah.
what can you do? For someone coming into delving for the first time, what song do you think best exemplifies?
I don't know if I could say there is one. I don't know, man. I really do. I think the songs are all like kind of different. I could say like, I think from the first record, Hirschbrunnen, which is the title track,
which I butchered saying leading into our conversation. I'm glad to hear you say it correctly.
I'm not making it easy on English speakers in these.
I'm sure you can guess how I pronounced it.
But that and from this, but that record I think was its own kind of little time capsule thing. So and the new stuff sounds quite different in my brain, at least.
No, I definitely agree with you on that. I listened to them both back to back a week or 2 ago, and there's certainly a good run forward with the new album, All Paths Diverge versus
Hirschbrunnen.
Oh, yeah, that one.
Yeah.
So no, and like that's a kind of a cop-out question on my end, and I knew it going into it and we had a similar conversation talking about Elder however many years ago, where I don't sit down with one of these delving records without enough time to hear it from start to finish. Just like I don't sit down with an Elder record, without knowing that I'm going to be able to hear it from start to finish, because there's all of the parts are so much better with the whole.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head for me, and that's why it's hard for me to also say like I'm imagining with that question, the idea is, if someone wants to get into the band and what's the best track to start with.
Sure.
But for me, it's almost like, well, in the best case scenario, there isn't one song, and every song should have its own kind of like full identity. And it's definitely music that you need to have some attention span for. And I find that when I'm writing it too, or writing any music for that matter, I often get like very engrossed in parts and find myself really like loving what I'm creating. And if I then I just sometimes will put it on in the background as like I'm recording demos, and I'll just put it on the background again while I'm doing something, and it just floats right by me, and it doesn't move me. It doesn't do anything to me. And I really think this is, which to me shows like, okay, this is music you need to actually pay attention to some amount, which is unfortunate. It's not, there's some stuff that just grab, sometimes you just hear something in the background and you're immediately like, oh, like,
sure.
Maybe someone else feels differently, but it's a
thing that I love having. The cop out, to use a phrase I just fucking use. The cop out thing here is that instrumental stuff has an easy way of feeling like the soundtrack of whatever the fuck's going on around you. And with stuff like Delving or even Pine, whom I talked to last week, it certainly has that quality where when it gets into like a droney type thing, just using big generic terms here, it's easy to kind of just be a part of the day with it. But there are parts that you've clearly thought through here where, as long as you've got an ear still on it, actually, for me, it pulls me back in and makes me focus on the song for a minute because something cool has just fucking changed, be it that kind of electronic thing that you're talking about towards the end of the album, or just any this and that part where, the fucking bass kicks in after a long build up or something like that. It's obviously thought out things. And I really love the instrumental stuff. And I know that's, I don't know, it's not like a counter opinion or anything like that, but it's also not the overwhelming thing. So these things I really fucking enjoy. And especially when they're put together in a way that's, again, it can't just fade into the background for me. There's going to be these things that grab and notate my notate my ears that, hey, you should be paying attention to this. Something cool's going on.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, it's music. It evolves a lot. I think like can be sometimes there's some songs that can be a real slow burn. This is something like I talked about with the labels when deciding on like what tracks to put out in advance. The first songs that I suggested to the US label that put it out, he wrote me back and he was like, maybe it's just me, but it sounds like, it kind of feels like you're kind of subconsciously trying to pick the songs that sound the least like Elder, and like almost like trying to subconsciously sync this thing by picking the songs that took the longest to get started, that the end the most, where you needed the most, like today's like, it's justified. Most people, a new album comes out, they're going to click on like whatever song they see first, and if it doesn't kick in within 10 seconds, like I'm not listening to an intro right now. Like I'm not listening to like 2 minutes of a sequencer. Like I don't have time for that.
I've got an email to respond to.
Unless you're really already invested in like, okay, I'm going to sit down with this and see where it goes. But so yeah, I mean, that's another thing that's not really working in its favor. But
sure,
people who, I don't know, Elder has managed to like reach a modicum of success doing music that's kind of challenging and music that definitely requires an attention span. And apparently there's people who like that, which is cool because I certainly like that too. And it's rewarding to know that some people do care enough to actually listen to a full record in one sitting.
Yeah, it's I can't, the short attention span for music things is something that fucking frustrates me. And like the real culture, REEL culture of just everything in 10 or 15 seconds, and let alone on fucking video or whatever, is I'm old man, get off my lawn with it, and I don't fucking care. I want to hear a good damn album. I want to push play. I want to enjoy it from start to finish. And these, the Delving albums and the Elder albums are things that for fucking sure fit that bill, because all of these songs work into the next song, and composing is a great word that you used just a minute ago for these types of things, because it feels like everything's been composed to give you like a full 45-hour long experience.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's crazy when you look at how much music is put out into the world like on a daily basis.
Sure.
And how much and all like all the blood, sweat, and tears everyone pours into it, and all the hours you spend meticulously going over the smallest details, and especially in these records, like, oh, you know, what's the structure of the album, what song goes first, what song goes last, and how does it flow together, what's the arc. And these are a lot of details that like 99% of people are never even, it doesn't even matter, because people aren't going to make it past the first, like, you know, you can look at, if I look at like the, you know, in the under the hood on like Spotify or something, you can see what the average like click through is, or maybe that's YouTube, but you can see that, you know, most people don't make it past a couple minutes, which is, it is what it is. You know, I'm not saying I'm a saint there and I listen to everything of that I ever click on, but it's a bit depressing. You just can't really think about that too much.
Sure. How much, to kind of jump with that, how much do you pay attention to things like the Spotify stats or YouTube listen?
I try not to care so much, but I'm definitely interested in it. And especially since I do work for a record label, it's something I look at in general for all of our artists, not just my own. But it's the kind of the best indication you've got, really, like a quantifiable indication of how many people actually give a shit. That doesn't always mean that. Oftentimes there's bands that, you know, plenty of people show up to their shows, but not that many people are listening on Spotify or something. Maybe they're listening to the record or whatever. But I would say I pay fairly close attention to that stuff. Yeah, it does interest me.
How often do you see something on there, be it Elder, Delving, or just something for the label, that kind of takes you back with the whole, okay, that it's weird to me that was the thing that caught on, but sure.
Yeah, that it does happen. You know, I think there's a lot, like one of the bands that we're just working with now is Slow Mosa, who I don't know if you know them.
I do not.
They're a Norwegian stoner rock band. They sound kind of like Queens of the Stone Age, you know, like early stuff. Like, they're really good. And
I'm gonna circle that. I want to fucking hear that now.
No, you're gonna love it. Their second record is coming out in just under a month, and this is a band that, like, they put out their first record, and that just like took off on YouTube. Like, for whatever reason, like, this is like this platform in specific, like, people really love this album. It got like millions of views or something, and stuff like that does happen every once in a while, where you're like, of course, obviously, it's a good band, and it's not a head scratcher that like people are
in general.
Yeah, I'm glad people are enjoying it. That makes sense to me. But sometimes it is like, why this and not that other record? What is it about this specific combination of factors? And you know, as far as like what song takes off, well, I haven't noticed that phenomenon with any of my bands that like once maybe like early Elder stuff that's kind of just like now considered some part of like a stoner rock canon or whatever. That's
right.
Early stuff. Yeah, I get why that's got more clicks. It's on like more playlists or something like that. But none of my bands have ever had like a moment where we just had some big breakthrough because of like, something got discovered. It didn't ever feel like that.
I was talking to someone just the other day, and I've actually been trying to recall the genesis of this conversation for a couple minutes now, and I'm going to say this out loud so that I can just flush it out of my fucking brain. Somebody told me that they had just come across Elder and were just absolutely in love with Reflections, and it was somebody that like I generally, this is going to sound super condescending, and I don't fucking care. It's someone that generally, like, I'm okay with their musical opinion. They don't strike me as a dipshit with these types of things. And it was striking that you just now found Elder, huh? Okay. Whatever works.
I mean, that happens to me often where, you know, I oh my God, who the fuck was this? I just came across a artist like the other day. A friend posted about a new record he was really listening to, and I started sending it to everyone, and I was like, "Oh man, you're gonna love this!" And like everyone was like, "Oh yeah, here he is, Oren Mbarki." And they're like, "Oh yeah, I love him. Like, yeah, he's got a lot of great stuff. Like all of the dudes. I mean, it's the dudes I play with. You know, they're also into like kind of." And I was like, okay, I thought like I just discovered some like amazing obscure guy, but like no, he's dude. He's been around for like ages. He's got a big
And
pedigree.
instead found out that you were late to the party.
Yeah, exactly. So that does happen. I mean, you can't be hip on like everything in every genre.
Sure. So coming back to delving stuff here and talking about the layers and the simplicity, or however it is that the songs are put together, especially with delving being what it is, how do you kind of delegate and figure out when is too much? How many layers are too many? How long is this song? Is this too much? How do you kind of sort these things? This is a question that I think I probably asked you with Elder when we talked a handful of years ago, and it's a question that I ask a lot, and I love the idea of it. I love thinking through it, but I never get a good answer. Everybody's answer is always some version of it just feels right or it doesn't feel right. So this is me like trying to force you to give me a better answer.
In a way, I find it easier with delving than Elder, at least to say like that's enough with like the layers. And Elder is very much like music with a ton of guitars. There's always way more guitars than we can physically play. Plus, like, and now more and more, I'm always like really into adding like Fender Rhodes or some kind of some kind of synthesizer stuff that like it's really we can't physically play all that stuff on stage, but it just feels like it's big bombastic music, and it's once you've gotten used to like those kind of layers, it's really hard to step back and like take a more minimalistic approach, at least for me. But with delving, I think there are a lot of moments in this record where I don't know if it was. I don't think it was a conscious decision, but I think there's more space for sure. There are more moments where, in the first track on the record, Sentinel, there are two wide gaps where it's just like a bass, drums, and some sort of like arpeggiator just going together. There's no guitars, and then there's one guitar, or there's a piano but no guitars, and piano and bass, and like just there's not always. I noticed somehow. It's easier to be effective with less elements as long as they're the right timbre, which is nice because in this band, it's like, well, in Elder, we know we've got two guitarists and a drummer and a bassist. Here, it's kind of like, well, I'm very open to, Mike, our other guitarist, he's also playing, keyboard. I've got my own synthesizers, and we can switch out the setup as much as we want, depending on what set list we're going to play. So I think it's like easier to do that actually didn't make sense as an answer at all either. Yeah, I don't think I can give you a better answer than most. I guess it just like at a certain point it feels fine.
Okay, well, it may not have made sense in your mind, but it's still my favorite answer to that question so far. If for no other reason than the way it ended. So when you're sitting down with something, you kind of alluded to this earlier, and is it obvious right off the bat when you're sitting down with a guitar or whatever it is that you're writing with that this isn't going to fit for Elder, this needs to be something else?
Well, that I think more often than not, when at the beginning of it delving, or when I start writing anything, I'm usually just kind of screwing around with an instrument, and if I hit upon an idea that I like, I'll just tend to record it. And sometimes that could fit into an existing Elder song that I'm working on, or sometimes it just ends up being its own little thing that might never make its way into anywhere. Sure. But now that and that was the kind of the way I did things for a long time. And now that I do have a defined band, there's delving, there's also two records, there's kind of an identity for the band. Now when I'm sitting down and writing music, like I'm definitely, now I said we're working on the next Elder record. When I sit down, I'm writing Elder music, and I'm in that headspace, and I'm like, I know kind of the vibe, what I'm going for. If I'm going to work on delving stuff, that's much more kind of everything but heavy riffs.
Okay, sure.
And, yeah, in my mind, I know what I'm doing, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to articulate that.
So we talked it's come up tangentially so far, the ending of the last track, which is Vanish with Grace, where it goes into that electric, be it hip-hop-ish or Nine Inch Nails-ish type thing. I want to know why you decided that was how the album should end.
I don't. Well, I think it just kind of felt like I had this idea to use this really like heavy, overdriven, like bass kind of electronic sounding thing. And for ages, I was trying to fit it into this song somehow in like an elegant way, but I couldn't do it. And then eventually I just said, you know what, like, fuck it. I'm just going to put it completely randomly at the end of this song. It's going to like really annoy most people, or maybe people will like just be very surprising after a whole record of more or less like, I mean, of course there's some electronic stuff, but there's nothing like that. And just kind of felt like a fun way to end things on another very like, yeah, just surprising note. I like records where you can't necessarily guess where everything's going, and that kind of felt like a cool way. Also, like how it degrades and kind of falls apart at the end. It's unfortunately a thing I tend to do on a lot of records. The last song will kind of like do this, not a fade out, but you know, the record's over, this thing, you know, that's getting granular, and then you know, it's on a tape machine and the tape slows down. It's almost like it's a cheesy thing, but for me it is like a bookend to an album to have like something like that, something defined, feels like it signals the end. I don't know.
Sure. I guess what I'm going to get around to saying here is you fucking nailed your intention. I was sitting there listening to the promo thing at work one day for the first time. And, you know, I'm responding to emails. I'm figuring out fucking spreadsheets and doing all the other fucking things that I actually get paid to do, so I shouldn't bag on them. And that's playing, and that change happens. And I stopped what I was doing and clicked back over to where the promo was to make sure that it didn't somehow like cycle over to another promo, because that's not a thing that happens. But also something fucking weird just happened here. And see, no, it's the same fucking song. And it struck me in all the ways that you just mentioned. And now it's something that I kind of fucking look forward to, as I know we're getting towards the end of the album. But like I haven't listened to it enough to know exactly when it's going to happen. So when I know I'm on that last song, it's kind of an anticipatory thing about where's that spot.
No, it's yeah, and it's nice. I mean, I like a lot of electronic music, and I mean I think it's fun to put, you know, it's kind of like if you make it this far so that you actually listen to the whole record and you're listening to the end of the last song.
Let's do something different.
Yeah, something different. I don't want to say like an Easter egg. It's not like hidden, of course.
Sure. But it's funny how Delving doesn't really sound like Elder, but there are times like the beginning of Zodiac where the guitar lick comes in and immediately it clicks through my brain. Yeah, no, that's Nick from Elder. Is that something you hear or feel? Is that a crutch? Is that how do you feel about that?
I think it's okay. There's times that I'm frustrated, and I think that song might have also been, I don't remember how long I've had that riff at the beginning of that song floating around. That could have been an Elder idea at a certain point, and then eventually it became that's one where I think it could have gone either way, and then eventually ended up in Delving song. But I think it's okay that musicians have their own like identity. It's kind of nice if you can hear like someone's, or at least I don't think it's a bad thing if you can listen to a record and be like, oh, that's like this musician. You can hear his like style or whatever.
Yeah,
it's
signature.
If you've got some kind of unique style. For me, I do feel it's almost, it can be irritating sometimes that I feel like I'm unable to step out of my own boxes. I continue, you know, sometimes I'll use the same phrases or the same, like, you know, musical phrases or
Sure, yeah.
You know, I'm in the same, like, again, I'm not like a trained musician, so my vocabulary here is not great, but you know, like, oh, I'm in this same like mode again, or you know, I feel myself like reaching. Every time you pick up an instrument, you kind of automatically do these same things, and so I want to break out of that. I want to continually do new stuff, but so I see it both ways. But in general, I think it's cool as long as that doesn't get old. Like, I hear this again, you know?
Right. Yeah. As long as you don't end up getting to a point where you're some form of actually repeating yourself. I can see both sides of it too. Like the idea of having a sound that is yours is not something that should be seen in a negative light. I think that's what a lot of people would probably strive for, but also like just from the creative side of things and wanting to do something new, I could see where it would have a downside as well. Where did the album title come from? And the album artwork.
The album artwork, I just gave the music to my buddy Benjamin. His name is Benjamin Butar. It actually is his real name. I know it's a great name.
And he's definitely German.
Yeah. I just gave it to him. He's a fantastic artist. He did the art for the first record, and I didn't tell him any like track titles. I just said, here's the music, listen to it and, make what you envision, which is the best thing. If you have an artist you can do that with. And I try to always do that if I can, if you trust someone like in their artistic vision. So that was it. He came up with the art based on the music. I didn't really.
Awesome.
Yeah. And he's a great artist. He does everything from like graffiti to fine arts, conceptual stuff. And, we talked about like basic ideas, mood boards kind of thing, like, colors and, what kind of references to use. But no, that's all him. But as far as not just the album title goes and all the track titles, I mean, it's instrumental music. I would be lying if I said that the songs have like a topic or something. Oftentimes when I'm like writing lyrics or titling things, like something just kind of comes to you. It's hard to explain, and I don't know why I like came up with this phrase. I think I was just thinking about like listening back on the record and reflecting like, wow, this is cool music. I'm very proud of this record. I think it goes a lot of places that I haven't gone before, and it's funny that this is so different than what I thought I would. It's funny who we become. It's 10 years ago I felt very much just like a kid who just wanted to like bang my head and drink beer and play loud music, and now I feel like I'm really trying to break into something that's maybe a little more intellectual in its own way, and just kind of almost like a moment like, oh, we've come far and like things are very different. And also like this life I'm living, probably not what I would have imagined, necessarily, 10, 15 years ago too. And I think All Paths Diverge just seemed like a fitting title. It made sense to me with this record. Felt like, everyone's going on some path. Sometimes you lead away from each other, you lose friends, you make friends, and we're all just kind of like traveling on our own little trajectory through space and time. And this album felt kind of like like a censure mark or whatever. But
that's a fucking stellar answer, man. I had my follow-up to that was something about how do you fucking sort out track titles for instrumental stuff. And as cringeworthy as that question by itself would be, I could have skipped mentioning any of that because you've already answered it in the way that you just did so very nicely. But this is the epitome of stupidity, so I had to make a point of it anyways. I don't know what I'm doing. Anyways, yeah, no,
I like words. It's fun to just play. Like sometimes it doesn't mean anything. Sometimes you stumble upon something, and like if you're like me, I really do. I get caught up in that stuff often. So I'm reading a book. Sometimes I'll, if there's a nice turn of phrase, I find myself like grabbing my phone and writing it down because I really like this. Somehow it's like
I do the same shit, man. I've got a whole fucking note thing in my notes app from where whatever book I'm reading, if there's something fucking random, oh hey, that was fucking cool, I'm gonna note that. I've never used any of them for anything, but they're there.
It's good to appreciate the small things.
Sure, yeah. So going with the words thing here, where did the name come from? Where did Delving come from?
That was I'm not really in. Okay, Elder is maybe a little bit more randomly titled than I would like to admit, but I play in 3 bands now, and they all have like names that mean something to me. It's not just picking random words. Like delving is a very personal project, and I like this name because for me it felt like the music was like delving into my own, personal thoughts, my own personal emotions, kind of like going into yourself. This word like delving, diving, internalizing, kind of this, or not internalizing, but going inward. It resonated with me because it felt very much like what I was trying to do with the music. And something also just about the way the word sounds. I liked it. I also liked that it kind of shares similarities and similar elder, delving. It's almost feels like some sort of reversed, or like a brother or somehow similar sounding word that almost worked for me in my own like musical cosmos thing, like
a sister city type thing.
Yeah, I like the idea that these two words also kind of sound somehow related, or they share like a similar sound somehow. So yeah. And I'm not gonna lie, I probably had a lot of other things I would have liked to call this band, but most band names are taken. And but actually turns out there's another delving, which seems to be some kind of like singer-songwriter thing from California. But so even no matter where you go.
Sure.
But
it seems like you've got a thing for the 2-syllable band names too, which I'm the one word, 2 syllables, I'm fucking for it. It's the
yeah.
Now, granted, I'm going to say this next sentence, and the next band I have on is going to have a sentence for a fucking band name. But the whole "I wrestled a bear once" type fucking band names just grate on me. Like you're losing points, and I'm not wanting to listen to you right off the bat if your band name is a sentence.
Yeah, that didn't age well. I mean, sometimes I don't know. It is stupid for me to feel that way, but just in the same way that like, if I don't like the cover art of a record, somehow that's already. I mean, it's kind of it can be a turnoff, obviously.
Yeah.
Anything based on that, but
I completely agree. There have been a number of instances where I've seen the album art for something, and some form of the thought, I'm not listening to that, ran through my head, and probably 8 times out of 10, I haven't made it to that album. And those other 2 are times where that album did end up making it to my ears, and I thought, all right, well, got that one fucking wrong.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think, like, I definitely for sure listen to some bands that have like objectively terrible band names. And once you can get past that, it's all subjective, of course. Maybe Delving is a horrible name to a lot of people. Luckily, I don't care. It's just something that I like. So
I think I've already referenced the last show once, but I'm apparently going to do it again. So talking to Pine last week, who are another instrumental band, and we got to talking about how sometimes, like the album art for their newest album was like a weird picture looking in on his parents' kitchen or something like that. And it ends up working because the music makes it work. It's one of those things where sometimes the music is strong enough to make a bad band name or a bad album cover or whatever fucking work. But sometimes you might be making the music do more work than it fucking needs to.
Yeah. I mean, hey, it's a lot of names we don't even question. Like, I often think like Pink Floyd, like what the hell? What is this? It's like, is it a good band name? Like, I guess it is, but
it's
sometimes
just inherent in language now. But if you think about it for 12 seconds,
we've been hearing this for so long that like we don't even second guess it. It's just like it is what it is,
Yeah.
I guess Pink Floyd is a good band name. I don't know. It's hard. Today we got just different standards because we're so like flooded
with everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, just like specific to the Pink Floyd thing, it's just ingrained. Until 12. I've said more than once on this fucking podcast that I've heard no album more than "Wish You Were Here." I've heard that album a fucking bazillion times.
Mm-hmm.
It's what I listen to every time I leave a concert. When I left the Elder Show here at Ace of Cups, I turned on "Wish You Were Here." It's just a nice, soothing thing for my fucking ears after a loud experience. I've never considered the name until just now.
Yeah, I've looked that up a couple times, like what the hell the origin is, but I don't remember if there was a real definitive answer.
Yeah, I have no idea. So going into the home stretch here, this has been I kind of clicked through our conversation because when you were originally on the show for Elder Stuff, Brian was still doing the show with me, and I kind of clicked through some of that and listened to bits and pieces here. And true to form, you're really engaging to talk to. It's been a lot of fun talking to you. So naturally, I'm going to ruin that. We're going to end this with some stupid shit here. But I haven't really changed a lot of these stupid things. And the fun here, I think, is going to be I went back through and noted some of your answers to these things. And I want to see if 4 years later, or whatever it is, some of your answers have stayed the same or not. So with that, we'll do some rapid fire things and work our way towards the end of this. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Same. Something you could eat for a week straight?
I guess probably pizza. I mean,
That's a standard answer here. That's actually a new question.
Yeah. I probably do go through weeks where I eat that every day. So yeah.
I had somebody tell me it's a show that actually hasn't made it out yet. It's for an album that doesn't come out for a while. He's a dude in the UK, and he told me tacos, but like specifically Americanized tacos.
Oh man, you're right. See, this is unfortunately like we don't have Mexican food over here. You're right. Yeah, I could probably eat a burrito every day for sure. Every time I go back to the States or on tour, it's like, eating burritos or like
all
ramen.
Burritos all the time.
Yeah. There's probably a couple things I could eat every day.
Beatles or Stones?
Beatles.
That was your answer previously. If you had to compare your music to an animal, what would it be? This is a new one. You don't have an answer here.
A dachshund.
The dog?
Yeah, wiener dog. I love wiener dogs. I just hope that it would translate to that somehow.
I love wiener dogs.
The most majestic of the animals.
You are compounding and making that sentence so much better. Of the animals. This is like I'm pissing myself off here because I'm going to have to go back through and edit out all the fucking silence I left there while I was writing down the most majestic of all the animals. Another one that you wasn't asked previously. If you could ask one animal one question, what's the animal? What's the question?
An animal, a question.
Yeah.
You think like an emu would know like its collective history, like why, how that or like how that's related to dinosaurs? It would be really nice to know. It would be really nice to know definitively if dinosaurs had feathers. Maybe an emu would be able to answer that because I think they're like prehistoric birds or something.
Okay, we're gonna go with that. Beer or liquor?
Beer.
Same answer. If you had a mundane superpower, what would it be?
Well, what are we calling mundane here?
Like, we're not doing like teleporting or being able to fly or reading minds or shit like that. It's like
can't be invisible.
My toast is already toasted when I go to grab it or something fucking stupid.
You find people have an answer for that like immediately?
Oh my God. No, not immediately. No. And that's what makes this one fun. Like one of my favorites so far was one guy said, I'd like to be able to know what's going to go wrong with my car a week before it happens.
It's great.
It's just like it kind of boils down to what's in an annoying part of your life that you would like to be able to solve via stupid superhuman ability.
Is it too like esoteric to say, I wish that I could perceive time the way I did when I was a kid?
No, that's fucking. Okay, it might be too esoteric because it obviously
not really a superpower. Actually, yeah, not really a superpower.
I'm gonna go with that though. That's a fucking great idea because I've never been able to put that in a sentence quite so perfectly. And that is
maybe I'm just on that because it's like the summer feels like it's over here, and I'm like, God damn it! Like when I was a kid, summer vacation lasted for like years. It felt like, and now it's like When you're an adult, you're of course just doing unfun stuff most of the time. So where's the time go, man? It's sad.
Yeah, man. That's a good one. Scale of 1 to 10. How good are you at keeping secrets?
My own or other people's?
Yes.
Yeah. Probably 8.
All right. Woods or ocean? This one you've got a previous answer.
Ocean.
Yeah, that was the previous answer. This one you've got a previous answer to as well. Fall or spring?
Oh. I'm trying to. It's funny because I lived on the East Coast for so long. Like there, obviously, ocean. It's
Fall.
a huge part of
Sure.
fall. But now, like I've been living in Germany or in Berlin, which is not close to any. It's not close to the coast at all. It's landlocked spot. So I'm like, oh, spring is really nice here because the fall is not spectacular. The woods are really nice here because there is no ocean. But
yeah.
I mean, I think I would take spring. I don't know if that's a new one, but
No, that's a new one. You were fall last time.
holy shit.
No. Gross.
Jeez,
It's a son of a bitch. Go-to karaoke song.
Oh, I always do. I want to know what love is. Because it's like not at all in my range, but it's really fun to like sing somehow.
So I assume you're still vegan.
Vegetarian.
I'm sorry, vegetarian. Vegetarian is the word I have written here. I was just
no.
So my question
is, not really. I've been eating fish and stuff. So,
well, breakfast sausage, links or patties?
Oh man, I really haven't had either of those in like a very long time. Link is just like a normal sausage, right?
Yep.
I think I would probably go with that.
That's what you got here. This one was the oh wait, no. There's a question that I haven't done a lot here recently that you had a fun answer to last time that I want to see if you go with again. Last time we did this, you were asked Hammett or Hetfield, and your response was, I kind of hate them both.
Yeah.
I want to see if that's still the case. Just make sure that we're still on par there.
Yeah. Nothing changed there. I didn't grow.
No growth there.
Didn't grow hugely fond of Metallica in the meantime.
The old Metallica, that's fine. Question is, you get sent to an island for the rest of your life. You get to take one album with you. What's the album?
Damn. That is a hard question to answer.
It sure is.
Yeah. Trying to think of something that I've been listening to. I mean, I've got a few records that I've been listening to for so long, and I always come back to them, but nothing that would really feel at home on a desert island all that time.
The idea of the space of, I think it was like 4 years since you were last talking to me, and being able to see where you've moved on this. Because again, I actually finally went back and listened to the album that you said the last time, and son of a bitch, it's really good.
I wonder if I said Little Lucid Moments by Motorcycle, because that's
exactly what you fucking did.
Yeah, because it's still such a great, that is one of the few records that like I always return to for sure and have for years. I mean, there's a couple other albums like 4 by Dungen, which is just, or This Way Out. There's a band called Idaho, like they were like a slowcore band. They're another one of the bands I've been listening to since I was like a teenager, and I still listen to them all the time. Weirdly enough, like I guess Motorcycle makes the most sense for the music I make, but yeah, check out Idaho though. That's a stellar band.
I've got it written down. I'm gonna I guess I'll probably get back to it 3 years from now when I try to talk you into coming on this stupid podcast again. At this point, I'm going to say thanks to Nick for talking with me today and enduring my goofiness yet again. If you're in Europe near where Delving are playing later this year, obviously go check them out and please report back to me because I'm not going to make any of those shows. Thanks as always to the Brimming Horn dudes for sponsoring the show. You'll find links not only related to delving, but also Brimming Horn, along with podcasts and the show description. There'll be all the social links. Please, follow everybody on the socials and hit the old subscribe button to wherever it is that you're hearing this from, and you'll get the next episode delivered to you free of hassle. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Nick to introduce the song that we're using for intro outro here. And I haven't actually brought this back up to him here, so I'm also going to test his memory to see if he remembers what song we decided on.
Oh, yeah. I don't remember. No. I do remember that. Yeah, we talked about this, but no, I don't.
We're going to push play on Omnipresence right about now.
All right.